Hey guys, welcome back to the Music Business Podcast. Today we have one of the first mentors that I ever had in the music industry, Brian Johnston. He's Senior Director of A&R at Atlantic Records, one of the biggest record labels in the world. He's worked with Wiz Khalifa, Kevin Gates, Kodak Black, and with us, he shares a lot about his experience on being an A&R. He's been an A&R for 8 or 9 years, how it's changed since he started, and how he's found some of the biggest artists that he works with to date. He also shares with us how artists that aren't discovered yet, quote unquote, can get to that level and get to meet somebody like him.
Yeah, no, I think it's a really, really awesome story. I think Brian had always had this ear, this love for figuring out what's new, what's popping. I think it was even before he knew what an A&R was, he was getting paid by Timberland essentially to help him find new artists. So I think getting to dive deep into what Brian's looking for, into how he's able to effectively get the stars to align, how he's able to get artists to work with the right producers and push the teams accordingly, I think is just a really, really refreshing view in what makes this industry work, right? Which is creating quality music. So without any further ado, let's jump into the show. Brian, what's up, man? Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Super excited. Yeah, I think this is a fun one too, because I know you guys used to actually work together. So this is coming full circle.
Yeah, man. I interned at Mass Appeal 4 years ago. So I'm only 24. So it wasn't like it was when I was
back in the day.
Yeah, it wasn't like too long ago. But
it seems like forever though, let's be honest.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I mean, it was right before I left to study abroad in Paris, and anything before that,
right.
it's like, damn, seems like a while. I seem like a different person. I mean, I kind of am. So
4 years in the music industry is probably 15 years in any other industry.
Right, exactly.
Right? So it'll definitely age you.
That's fun. So I know we were, just before we even started rolling, already just talking about the definition of A&Ring. I think obviously there's a lot of different kind of lenses and perspectives, and obviously it's a complex role, lots of moving pieces, but like, how would you define A&Ring and what to you kind of defines a great A&R?
Okay. There's a lot of, like we were discussing earlier, there's versions of what that is. Mm-hmm. The one I work in and I move and that I feel is A&R. In addition to like what comes behind, scouting talent, finding ones that you think of a voice that's compelling enough you want to be in business with, getting them to agree to be a part of your company and your vision, in addition to, helping them make an album, whether it's like, you should work with this guy, you should do this. Like, that's the most, low-hanging fruit version of what this is, right? And then there's you, in addition to that, it's working with every new and upcoming to more established producer and songwriter, setting up constant amount of sessions to deliver records for your team, your roster. So you might have an artist that is 100%er, right? Mm-hmm. They're going to go in, write everything, deliver everything. They're going to find the producers they want to work with. Great. Like, go off and do your thing. But at the same time, I'm going to try and meet them halfway. Be like, all right, I'm going to try and help them make the records they're not going to make on their own to help them get over that hump. Maybe, so I'll go off and work with the best songwriters and producers and either try and create the best hooks or just try and flip the best samples to play or deliver for them. And then there's some artists that don't do anything. They're just a vehicle for a great song. That's more in the, the pop and the pop rock and the dance world and stuff like that. They're just got a good tone that people respond to, maybe a great story. So it's on you to find everything, to deliver everything. So, from like understanding what is a great record and why it's a great record. And then if you've got an okay record, how to get that from a C+ to an A+. What goes behind that? Is it, I need a better melody. This pre-chorus has got too many syllables in it. To, why this production, why this snare isn't going to work. Or I need the snare from this Nelly record, or I need sort of drums similar to, this Master P song, but I need the 2020 version, Right. So like figuring out what that looks like and, working with creatives and being able to like, communicate what that looks like. And, That's to me A&R. In addition to like getting the building excited, communicating to the building, the label,
right,
what it is, why it matters, why you should be excited about it. Because, you know, a lot of A&Rs, they might do an album or a project and they just hand it off to marketing and
right,
they just assume they care about it as much as you.
Right.
And, you know, then they go off and do whatever they do. But you should definitely, the first 2 years maybe of a project, you should be a part of everything, the whole process, and communicating what it is, and, you know, helping to deliver their vision. So I don't know if I answered the question, but
sure. No, that's awesome. I think, I mean, it seems too like there's definitely going to be some times too where, just at least on the artist side and trying to orchestrate producers and artists, some people are obviously easier to collaborate with than others. I mean, what's your experience? I mean, when it comes to how have you gotten better at getting people excited to work on various things rather than just like, yo, we need this verse, please?
Oh, yeah, sure. I was going to say, like, I was pretty much going to ask the same question. Like, how do you hone that skill? You know,
I think that just comes from, you know, knowing how to, you know, communicate to people and how to do it. It's funny. I was just having a conversation actually earlier today. I've been working in urban music, if you will, rap and R&B since I started, you know, in the music industry, and seeing, you know, maybe the more pop rock A&Rs diving in, trying to discuss and have conversations with, you know, rap producers and R&B producers and not understanding what they're talking about. And, you know, that makes my skin crawl. It's like, ugh. But I think it just comes behind like experience over the years. Like if I probably go back and look at how I discussed making records when I first started, I would probably be very embarrassed with myself. But I was putting myself out. I was learning the tricks of the trade that like, okay, I understand how this person works or how this person best works. And I understand how to get the best out of, you know, the more A-list guys. But then the younger guys who I'm constantly hitting up, you know, they've got their own works and, you know, they communicate that to you. So you don't just be like, hit them up, like, yo, send me some beats. Like maybe that's cool, but I want to be there. If I see they're compelling enough, like I want to be a part of that whole, I want to in 3 years, 4 years, they could be the next so-and-so. So they remember I got them their first placement. Like,
right.
You know, Brian got me my first check in this industry. I'm forever look out for him. I've got a list of like, most of the A-list guys, I probably got them their first check. And right now, anyway, I got Metro his first check at Atlantic. You know, so they remember that and they'll always look out for me. But I'm always good to them as well. So I think it just comes behind, you know, knowing how to communicate. Because there's a lot of artists that don't communicate. They're just not good at making friends and relationships like that. And some are hustlers. Some will hustle their way into any room. And so...
Do you think that you end up working more for younger, less experienced artists, or it just depends on the person you're working with? So do you think you do that liaison role more for newer artists as opposed to older artists, or does that not really make a difference?
I think after a certain point, they're already they're trained. Like they're moving. They've got 2 albums out or an album and a half out. They're good. They're on their own path. They've figured out whatever the kinks are.
Right.
The new artists, it's still, you know, it's very fresh, and I need the creatives that I want them to work with, the producers and songwriters. Sometimes the artist isn't a fan of me as the label guy because it's not organic. So I need to figure out the best way to facilitate making that relationship happen. So it could be like, I like this guy's production. He'll send me a whole bunch of shit. And this artist, I was like, all right, I get a folder together. I play through ideas. I'm like, yo, I love this one. I love this. I love this. And they end up writing to this record. And then what I'll do from a particular producer, and I'll say something along the lines like, you want some more stuff from that guy? He's dope. He's like, yeah, fuck with this. This is good. And then I get more stuff and I keep dropping their name. So what I'll do, like a day later, maybe they record something. I'll put them in a studio in that same room, that same building. And I'll just drop the gem like, hey, you know that guy that did this? He's actually down the hall. And then they'll go make that connection on their own.
Wow. There's a little bit of social engineering there too.
Yeah, I think, yeah.
Yeah, that's cool.
You alluded to the kind of need a couple less or more syllables in this pre-chorus. I mean, there's no one size fits all like plug and play formula for a hit or a great song, but there are certain like trends. What do you look for in a great song?
I mean, again, like you said, there's no one way to deliver that. I mean, pop and rap and urban music pivots every couple years, and that's the new sound, and that's how people respond. It's new iterations of what it was before, but it's a more compelling voice delivering it. But, I mean, melody will always be king, right?
Right.
It will always be king. But, a melody with a lyric will make something a classic at the end of the day. So if you're delivering a great song with a compelling melody, you can strip back the production, you can strip back whatever, and it'll stand alone on its own. So you can, however that looks like and sounds like, it'll still be that recording, that version of the record will still hold the test of time. So,
have you ever had to say something that the artist was upset about or maybe didn't agree with? And then once that happens, how do you kind of navigate that situation from there?
All the time. All
the time.
Yeah. I mean, it really depends on your relationship with the artist. But again, I think that's just like any other relationship with any other working relationship you might have with somebody.
Right.
It might get contentious, you know what I mean? But they know you're out there, you're fighting for them. Right. At least I hope they realize that.
Right.
And you're looking out for their best interest. But some battles are worth fighting and some are just not. And I'm just like, we'll just let that go.
Right.
But I think it's a case-by-case basis, really.
Right. Yeah, I just know artists, it's their life's work. And a lot of the times it's all they have, So
sure.
When you're giving critiques to them, they may or may not be open to it, just depending on the way that they think about their music and how much it's been a part of their life so far. I mean, I would figure that'd be more so prevalent with newer artists, people who haven't really worked with A&Rs before. Somebody kind of telling them, look, your sound would be better if you did this or not. So obviously working at a major label, I'm just wondering what that experience is like for you. But yeah, I mean, depending on the person, makes sense.
Yeah, I think it's an artist by artist thing. And who I know is open to that and is like, wants to learn and why I think that. But some are just, some are just a volume, right? They're just going to record 200 records and I'll just find the best 8, 9, 10, 12 and we'll find, pump those out. You know what I mean?
Right.
And then some are just like, they take 3 days on a song or they take 2 days on a song, whatever. I'll hop in and I'll help them find whatever that they think they're missing on that record. I'll try and do that.
So is either one of them, is in both of those scenarios, is one easier than the other? Or is it more just a different way of working?
Yeah, I think it's just a different way of working. You come to expect certain things like, some artists, they're doing 4 or 5 songs a night, but I have to sit with the music. Right?
Yeah.
I've got to really dive in. I've got to trust their team, the people around them who are, hopefully they're not yes men and hopefully they're people. I rely on the engineer quite a bit as well. Right. Whoever's got a close relationship that can be honest with me, we'll dig in and I'll pull aside, the songs that I really like. And maybe it's something, the little tweaks that can be had to make a change, to make it better. I don't know. But if depends on the artist, if something they'd be willing to revisit. But like production, I can revisit easily. I can just make a beat harder or change some drums. Right. Or if there's a sample in there, we can replay it or something like that. So
right.
Yeah.
Right.
Looking back, obviously, it seems like you've collaborated and worked with lots of different artists and producers. Who stand out as some of the best to work with and why?
Producers?
Artists and producers, yeah, either.
Artist-wise, I don't know, man. They're all like different experiences. I wish I could just drop a name like, this because of this. But I think what we did with Kevin Gates at the time where the music industry was, streaming didn't exist like that at all at the time. It was still a mixtape sort of space, but the internet, as far as, blogs and stuff, that wasn't a thing anymore either. So it was like this weird gray area where like things only lived on iTunes, right? And there wasn't even like a SoundCloud wasn't a thing yet either. Yeah. So it's like either you're on DatPiff, so you had to go to a website, or live mixtapes, so you had to go to this website. They didn't even have an app. So it was this weird space of like a good 2 years that was the music industry. And I just happened to be working with this gentleman at that time. And I think, not saying it's easier now, but there's definitely a lot more opportunity for discovery now. Like your algorithms are going to tell you, oh, you like this. Like if you just go down like just a YouTube, whatever the next video is, you can just keep scrolling down. It's like, you're going to find the other version of this record from somebody else. Like, so that's amazing, by the way. And then, but Kevin at the time, I think it was just how we got that to the marketplace. I don't think anyone was doing it. I took cues from Gucci Mane at the time, actually. Gucci was putting up everything he ever recorded everywhere, right?
As well, he's locked up.
Yeah, I think so. I forget what year this was, but he was just putting it everywhere. It was everywhere. You could but no one was listening to Gucci like that unless you're a diehard Gucci fan.
Right.
And I was like, man, there's no reason we can't put up a pre-order for a mixtape, because no one was doing that at the time. Put a mixtape out, sell it, at the same time drop all the songs on YouTube. Drop it for free on DatPiff or live mixtapes, with Topbox, everything that came with getting in all the DSPs, just at the time, whatever those were. Right. No one was doing that. And we were the first people I convinced to do pre-orders for a rap mixtape. And I think that, I don't know if people give Kevin credit for that. I don't think they do. But, like people were like Lil Wayne, a bunch of people were like running DatPiff, like Meek Mill, like murdering DatPiff. But what I was trying to do is kind of set up his fan base to be okay, be comfortable purchasing his music. So yes, you got it for free. That's great. But at the same time, if we put a pre-order up 2 months out, people are like, okay, cool. $7.99, whatever. You know what I mean? Like, I'll have it of the day. And you just keep promoting the pre-order. And then I think when album time actually showed up, people felt comfortable. They felt okay paying for his music. Because we did, 3 or 4 tapes before the album. Yeah, I forget what. So.
Oh, that's super cool. Even today, I know like doing pre-saves on like Spotify has become a popular tactic.
Pre-saves. Yeah.
Actually, I don't even know how that works.
Yeah. I think it becomes a playlist after you save it and it becomes available.
So it saves it to your library so that when it does become available, it automatically downloads it.
Okay, gotcha.
You can also set notifications now. So like you can say whenever this artist drops one,
gotcha,
I can get one immediately. So I'm not sure how new that is, but I think it does that when you follow them. I'm pretty sure.
I think I use the most basic version of what is Spotify. I just type in people's name and listen to the song. But I'll use like certain playlists and stuff like that. I know a couple playlists that are like feeder playlists for other things, and I check those. But yeah.
Yeah, I got like 8 playlists in like an A&R playlist, and I just shuffle them together like every week, and then just go through as many of them as I can throughout the day.
Nice.
So yeah.
Which leads us to one area, which is the kind of talent scouting component of the field that is A&R. I mean, is that something you focus on? Or, I mean, is that kind of like split up and divided and conquered by other A&Rs within Atlantic?
We have A&R, we have A&R research as well. I think every company does. And we have tools, proprietary software within our company that, that does that sort of thing as well. In addition to like, there's websites out there dedicated to that. There's a million and one ways to come across talent. If me personally, I'm not concerned about numbers. I just really respond to a voice. And if I dig in and there's a bit of a story there, I'll dig deeper. I want to know what it is, why it is. If I'm responding to it, I'm going to assume somebody else is. So maybe the numbers just justify my gut instinct.
Mm-hmm.
When you say a voice, you're attracted to a voice. What about a voice are you attracted to, or what attracts you?
Me, the first thing I notice is someone's tone on a record.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I'll always respond to that. Like whether you're a singer or a rapper, your tone. If your tone cuts through, it's distinct. Like I'll respond. Like if I played my mom like Big Sean and J. Cole back to back, she'd probably think it's the same person. Maybe. Mm-hmm. But if I played my mom, Big Sean and Plies, she knows that's not the same guy.
Yeah.
Right. So they're vehicles for that. So that's the first thing I notice. That's the first thing I look for. Mm-hmm. How you get in and out of a hook, how you approach a verse. Are you compelling? Are you saying something that's like almost first person emotional sometimes? Or are you just a straight hit, a hit writer? Like if your song is like emotionally hollow and it's not sonically set for the club or the car, like I don't know what purpose your rap record serves.
Right.
If I'm not legitimately learning something from you, or you're putting me on some game, and then it's like I said, it's not going to get played out anywhere, or your friends aren't going to ride to it in the car. Like I don't know where it lives in 2018.
How much of that is branding? Because obviously in the world of social media, a brand can carry an artist just as much as their music. How much of the A&R process for you or your coworkers is what is this person's brand also?
Maybe, I don't know if brand for myself so much as opposed to like, is it contrived? Is like, this guy, is he going to be found out? Is this real? Is this story real here? Are these your stories?
Right.
Like once we go down that rabbit hole, like, not that I'm saying you need to be, as long as you're true to yourself, like whatever version of yourself is, like, that's ultimately what I'm looking for as far as a brand. Like, I don't care how you dress within reason, obviously. Like
right.
You just can't be a cornball, I guess. But,
right.
Because I don't play to hipsters. It's a very small edge of the world, right? Mm-hmm. They move on so quick.
Yeah.
The regular people of the world, they're the one who are going to hold you down forever. They're the people they're the people who buy merch. They're the people who show up to the shows, buy hard tickets. And once they tap in, they're in there. They're part of their team so-and-so forever.
Right.
So.
That's super cool. What do you think, leads to longevity? Obviously, there's lots of artists that have a hit. And I mean, you've worked with lots of artists that may have been in that situation where they did just have a hit and they kind of like fell off and never really had anything past that. But then you've also been in the presence and worked very closely with people that have had very kind of like long lasting, sustainable careers. I mean,
sure.
What do you think separates the two?
Sometimes, having a hit out the gate is it's a curse. Mm-hmm. If you didn't do the groundwork, the legwork, and you built some sort of small fan base before you had that hit, the next record better be just as big as that one. Mm-hmm. And you got to come quick behind it. Because particularly in rap, if you get a hit record, you're going to hit the road. You're going to go Thursday to Saturday getting the show, not even show money, the club money.
Yeah.
And next thing you know, it's been 6 months and you were getting 10 grand here, 20 grand here, 50 grand here. And it's like, oh man, I need a new song. And then you try to go chase that into a studio and you're trying to follow that up so quick. I've seen that time and time again. It happens all the time. Mm. So if you have a hit and you work your ass off for the next 3 months and you've got 2 missiles right behind it, you can probably stay on the road for 3 years. Right. Legitimately. You can ride that wave for as long as possible. But if you're doing the groundwork and you're the legwork and you're slowly just building and you're doing supporting act, you're just touring, you're just slowly building up from like 50 cap rooms, you're going to take a loss, right? You're in, Topeka, Kansas, right? You're going to take a loss. Or you're a Southern artist, but you're out in Oakland, maybe you're going to take a loss, right? It's just like that slow grind. And then when it's time for a hit and then you have one, it just amplifies everything you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's, the grind. I think that comes behind legitimate, like, fan base that'll, like you said, I forget the terminology you use, but like,
longevity.
Just for some longevity. And then you're just, putting out quality material at a rate that people can consume it, at the same time digest it, and then, you're hitting the road. You're on the road a lot. And you're actually getting, hard ticket sales. You're not, not just popping up at a club. You know what I mean? You're on a flyer and you're doing 3 songs, 4 songs, but you're actually hitting the road and touching the people.
I was telling Sam the other day, that was like one of the first things you taught me at Mass Appeal, because you asked me to look for artists, and I was just sending you the artists that had like 100,000, 150,000 hits on SoundCloud, and you were like, that's not the only thing you should be looking at. And I was like, the first time I was like, damn, like ticket sales are important, because obviously I was young, and that was my second opportunity to learn something like that in the music industry. The first internship I had before that, though, was music publishing, and I was in the administrative department, so it wasn't like we were really getting deep into that anyway. But yeah, it's just interesting you bring it up, because that was like one of the first lessons you taught me, I think, a few years ago. So
yeah, touring is like, it's like your victory lap, If you're getting people to show up, and you're, next time you come to that town, there's 100 more people,
right?
You know what I mean? And then as long as you're slowly, building that, and those people, they feel like they're a part of your story from early on.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't know, like Wiz, like the Taylor gang, they'll forever hold him down. They're not going anywhere. They were such a part of his story from the jump.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. When it comes to hits, do you feel like sometimes, have you been in situations where you thought it was going to be a hit and it flopped, and then vice versa, where you wrote it off and next thing you know, it's just like smash hit?
Yeah.
So like what?
Both ways?
Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes records get attached to things that you didn't anticipate, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe they're the deep cut off a tape, and that just starts raising its hand on its own. You're like, okay, this is the record. Sometimes there's a lot of people who are scared to make those distinctions and just want to put out the album or the project, and just see what people were responding to, and like, all right, that's our single,
right?
But yeah, there's things you deem. I'm not like, I'm not making that decision like, yo, we're going to spend a shit ton of money going to radio first, because that's a horrible idea.
Right.
Like, let's just put it out there in the marketplace, and we'll call it a single, totally. Shoot a video. Yeah. It'll lead a project, or, you just need some content out there at the time. And, you're not putting a real hard investment, because it's free to put shit up on YouTube. It's free to put it up there. So if it's going to talk back, it's going to talk back. It's not at the expense of, your whatever, some.
Right.
And then, cool, we'll spend some money at Mix Show, or you'll do something here, the really easy to handle things. But we at Atlantic aren't going to go straight to radio with something we would never do.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Or now anyway, maybe years past. Yeah.
So how much of your job is like putting younger A&Rs on game? Like, obviously A&Rs now, they get hired like very young.
Sure.
We have one on our team that's 20, 21 years old. I know another consultant. I think he works for Atlantic. He's like 20, 21 years old. So how much of your job is like mentoring them?
Well, it's not something we're asked to do.
Mm-hmm.
We are offered an opportunity through, particular systems. We have internship programs through like certain colleges that want to come in, and, someone will spend 3 months here during the summer. But I have like, me on a personal level, I have about 5 kids that kind of tap in, and I give them opportunities constantly. If I respond to their ear, like, that's really what it boils down to. I don't need another version of me.
Right.
Right. Like, I know what I like. Maybe I'll have somebody who I align with taste wise, like on a personal level, like, yeah, this is my shit. And I think they're just on the cusp of what I do as well. But I try and find the kids who are finding those things I'm not finding, that are people making the music that aren't necessarily in my immediate world. And in addition to I really want these kids to tap into producers, finding those young songwriters and those creatives, finding that kid maybe in, Gary, Indiana, who's a rapper, but his voice, his tone isn't there. But, this dude is a songwriter. He's a real songwriter, and engaging with them. Many songwriters many artists I've turned into songwriters, over the years, just writing hooks for me. Mm-hmm. Lots of them, and they get lots of looks, and they're like, all right, yeah, I was so close to giving up as the rapper thing because it wasn't working out, but, then they're becoming songwriters. So it's just yes, I do mentor some kids. Actually, a young man that was at Mass Appeal, who I gave him an internship because I thought he was super inquisitive, and I thought he asked a lot of questions, and some people thought he was a little annoying, but I loved that he asked so many questions. And he hovered, and he just got a job at Atlantic as a research A&R. His name's Adam.
Wow, awesome. Good for him. That's dope.
But I really like engaging young kids that want to learn. The ones that are on some I told you so, or yeah constantly. You're telling them something yeah, I know that. That's just tough, but I definitely want to engage with more young kids, just kids in general. The kids that are hanging out at studios till 3 a.m. Those kids that are studio hopping in Atlanta, studio hopping in LA, they're just getting in the rooms. I like to meet those kids a lot too.
So how do you provide that level of mentorship without influencing their ear too much? I know you said you don't want them to be an exact copy of you. Is it more you kind of prod them in order to think a certain way, or how do you kind of draw that line? I might groom their ear a little bit and ask them why do you think what do you like about that? Where do you think that fits in the marketplace? Why do you think people are going to care about that? They might have to critically think about things. But at the same time, it's if you really believe it and you want to drop your nuts on it, speak up. You know what I mean? Right.
If you really believe in it. But, just giving them tips and pointers along the way. Nothing in particular. Some kids are more, artist-wise. Some kids are going to be, I think, this is going to be a song kid. He's tapped in. He was a producer at one point. Or, he comes from this sort of background, so he understands how to communicate to songwriters. And then some kids kind of cover both, but I really enjoy that.
Cool.
On the corporate end, I think you definitely, we're looking at the perspective of younger kids climbing the ranks. For you, obviously there's the kind of the bureaucratic component of you got a fire record, incredible record. You want to actually get the marketing resources, the support on that end. Can you just talk to your, and then at the flip side too, you worked in a bit of a smaller company like Mass Appeal versus Atlantic. What have you learned when it comes to trying to foster buy-in? Specifically at Atlantic in that situation.
Getting people excited about a record.
Yeah.
So I know we're launching it, and getting it. Is it a brand new artist or is it an established act?
Be more difficult for brand new, right?
Yeah, it's a whole different process.
Maybe a little bit of both. Yeah, let's start with the brand new.
Brand new, I'm A&R, and some product managers / marketing, they're very territorial. It depends on what kind of music it is, where they are in the marketplace, where they are in the news space. Are they a baby? You know what I mean? Or are they somebody who's had a little bit of love already and,
right.
They're getting press and things like that. I don't think there's one way that this gets delivered. There's people are doing things everyone does social seeding, right? You're going to plug it into a famous person's Instagram account, or you'll attach it to a meme page, things like that. As corny as that sounds, that shit works.
That's what he does sometimes.
Yeah. And I think our buddy, Jordan Chalmers does a lot of that for you guys, right?
Yeah, exactly. He worked his way in from being a digital manager to that is what he does for Atlantic now. That's all he does is he's always walking by my office, giving people tours. And I'm I don't know who any of those people are, but evidently they're really compelling. People respond to what they're doing on the internet.
Yeah.
Like some Instagram page with like 6 million followers, and they like cover roller skating or something like that. I'm like, what? You know? But
that exists. Yeah.
It exists.
The world of influencers. Gotta love it.
Yeah. So that's such a weird world. But then you've got a more established acts. It's like, all right, we're launching this at the Super Bowl. You know what I mean? Or this is getting previewed at, this is launching through this new Gap campaign or something like that. You know what I mean? That's such a bigger way to get records in the marketplace. If you've seen it, we've done it, I'm sure. But once it gets to that point, like they're already massively established, and not saying I don't really care how it gets out there, but it's going to do what it does on its own.
Totally.
What's your relationship like with the artists' managers? So obviously, like, you seem very hands-on, and you seem like you kind of get into the nitty-gritty of the artist development and artist creative. Have you ever run into managers that are kind of control freaks about their artists, or you needed to kind of massage that relationship a little bit?
Yeah, all the time. I try and get it early on so they feel comfortable about making decisions, me helping make decisions, or just me doing what I do. Most of my day is spent on group text with different managers.
Right.
Whether it's their day-to-day and their main manager. Some are more seasoned than others. Early on, if you're working with a brand new artist and the manager's green, very green, you're the manager.
Yeah, so that was going to be my next question. Vice versa too. What's that like?
Yeah, so if you and probably the A&R admin person and potentially the product manager, you're the management team,
right?
Minus the commission, right? So
right.
You help everything that comes behind whatever looks like the first year or two potentially. Right. And not that I don't want them to be a part of the process. That's the last thing I want. I want them to learn what we're doing and why we're doing it, because I want them to be able to obviously help. And I try and give them as much resources as possible. I might have them meet a more seasoned manager, like, hey, somebody I know that I'm friends with, like, hey, can you spend a weekend with this guy and just kind of like, bring him up to speed on certain things, like teach them some things, like go hang with him. Maybe he can lean on you without me there.
Yeah.
So I try and do that as much as possible. But some managers are, they know it all, and that's cool. Then some managers are really on top of their shit and I don't have to worry about anything.
Right.
It's like, let me go do me, and you go off, and then they come back to within a week, they've done what some managers can't even do in 2 years. So they're not all managers are the same. That's for damn sure.
Do you think at a certain point, especially for these green managers that kind of have to take control, or else you can't work with them, you can't continue the relationship, or do you just usually assume that responsibility until the deal is done? Or like has the management or the team behind the artist ever become an issue with the way that you work?
Oh yeah. I mean, there's some artists actually, once I find out that it's a manager, this manager's involved, I just won't engage with them.
Wow.
I'm just not interested in being in business with them. Because I know what comes behind that. The stress of this person is going to put on me. And unless it's like this artist is like a global, like, yo, this is going to be a life changer for me, then I won't, entertain that. But if it's somebody who's like, it's cool, it serves a purpose, it's good, I just won't entertain it because I know how much stress that person's going to put on my life.
Right. Interesting.
I think you have a very like unique ear, and I think that's like that's your job. When you think of kind of sonically looking at the past like 5 to 10 years, can you talk a little bit through some of the trends you've seen come and go? And then, we don't have to necessarily look into the future, but I'm just really curious from your perspective, somebody that like pays so close of attention to just little nuances and this vibe versus that vibe. Obviously we've seen like hip hop become like the leading genre right now. Like the whole like trap sound is huge, but I'm just curious from your perspective, like what trends have you seen over the past like 5 to 10 years come and go?
I mean, we know hip hop's been the leading genre for the past 15 years. It just didn't have a place to thrive. And on a global scale, that labels gave a shit about it, and like brands gave a shit about it. And, places like Dat Piff and Live Mixtapes and, hand-to-hand tapes were running it. So, and now, that's not the case, obviously. But as far as like sonically, it's like it just dips in and out so much, I hate when people try and make future sounding music, whatever that is. Like they try and sound like the future, unless it's rooted in chords. I think it's garbage. But I'm going to do a horrible job answering this. Like, what are some things you're thinking? And then I can probably tack on like, because
I mean, from my memory, like in 2004, 2005, the biggest thing I could think of was like snap rap, like Soulja Boy, Young Jock, kind of the whole dance craze thing.
I mean, yeah, we could just do a lineage of like what kinds of stuff responded to. For the past 5 years, I don't know if there's been like a big sonic change. I mean, other than like maybe the real, the stuff like Ronnie J's of the world, the more bass heavy sort of 808, the muddy 808s that come behind this last 2 to 3 years of what SoundCloud rap was.
Yeah.
That's obviously, I mean, there's a million subgenres that's been doing a lot of different things, but the things that have, kind of poked their head up and people have responded to outside of their immediate world was, that sort of space, that sort of sound. And, everyone says, what people like Juice WRLD are doing in that space, and Lil Peep was doing, they pretty much just like Good Charlotte Records, but without the live instruments, or they were like Saves the Day or Get Up Kids Records without the live instruments. So I mean, that's kind of really been it for the past 5 years, outside of like, better versions of, like certain trap records that, like Gucci's been doing or Jeezy was doing or whoever was doing, or, obviously the flow, the approach to songwriting the Migos has had a big influence on a lot of people.
Can you dive deeper there?
I mean, outside of their cadence that, that came from, Lord Infamous and what he was doing with 3-6 Mafia in the mid 90s, early to mid 90s. That's sort of the world. I mean, what Memphis rap did as far as an influence just on someone even like a Gucci Man, that's still pretty prevalent today. I think that approach to songwriting is, it's kind of held down what is this version of like Southern rap, at least the past 5 years.
Do you think that in your role, do you feel the pressure at this point, or is it sort of like, you're just working? So are there any artists that you sign or that you maybe didn't sign that, oh man, I missed my opportunity, or you did sign them and you were like, maybe this isn't a good look. And, after that happens, are you given any anxiety, or is it sort of like, this is just business at this point?
Sure. I mean, there's been quite a few artists that I should have signed, I've spent a lot of time with early on, and maybe I just didn't, trust my gut. Or someone said something that kind of like, really? Oh man, maybe this isn't true. Maybe this isn't the right artist, or so on and so forth. I mean, I can go through a list, but I'm sure you want names. No, it's okay.
I mean, it's up to you, man. I mean, we're not going to make you do anything you're uncomfortable with. I'm just more so asking at this point in your career, do you feel the pressure of being an A&R and what that means to the rest of the label? Or is it more like, I'm just working. This is just what I'm doing.
I mean, it is a job at the end of the day, right?
Right.
And performance, is key. I have a great relationship for the people I work for. But I'm not comfortable. I don't think that's in me, just personally. It's always always chasing something. I'm always just like chasing the record, chasing the hit. I want to be first on this. I want to be, I want to do this. I want to win. I want the best for the label, the team, the artist. So, some things don't work out, and that's okay. And, I always put my all into it, whether it's working or not. I still try and get the best out of, the artist, and whatever the circumstances are, they know I went to bat for them. I did what I could to win. And they'll never say it was A&R's fault because it didn't win. Maybe most of the time, it's a combination of artist drive and what they want to put in to get out of it. So,
who was the first artist you signed?
The first artist I signed, actually, it was a producer. When I first started, I was at Atlantic, and gosh, how long ago was that? 10 years ago? 9 years ago, I think. And I was actually one of the first artists I was given was, I started looking over the day-to-day of what Plies was doing. And I was getting a lot of records done for Plies and Lupe at the time randomly. And Flow Rider, actually.
Wow.
Eclectic mix right there.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But it comes down to a song. And is the song gonna, because I can reapproach the production and fix whatever comes behind that. But if it's a song is there, like you'd be surprised, like the songs that start as a T.I. record and end up like a Flow Rider record or vice versa. I had this one record that was Plies, T.I., Flow Rider again, MIA. They all cut it. And it got cut by another artist on another label and ended up going over there. But like the approach of the record, it was just came down to the top line. The hook was it was just right that it could live anywhere. It's just a matter of changing the production.
Right. How much of your job do you think is driven by competitive nature? I mean, obviously, there's a lot of artists that are out now, and it seems like sometimes before they even drop a record, they're already signed to a multi-million-dollar deal. It just kind of depends on the artist. Do you let that get to you when you're thinking about an artist? Like, oh, this artist could get taken by another label if I don't make a move on it.
Oh yeah, all the time. Yeah, all the time. I mean, you're like you said, you gotta trust your gut to be able to you're in there. They hired you for a reason and they trust you. And sometimes you just gotta be like, all right, let's go. I'm gonna put my name on the line for this. And, whether you're in there early enough to where you don't feel like you can get an agreement done with them that isn't, gonna be off the walls ridiculous, but it's gonna sort of speak back on what they're doing, where they are in their career. Yeah. But yes, that's a very big thing. It's very competitive, obviously.
Right.
Even within the company sometimes, if you've got 10 A&Rs, you're not all talking to each other all the time, right? So,
right,
that can get kind of iffy too sometimes.
Have you ever wanted to sign somebody another A&R on your team was trying to sign? Like, has it ever been that directly competitive?
Not. It depends on the artist. Sometimes I'll just give it up and I'm like, yeah, go ahead. Because I just don't like the contentiousness.
Right.
That's just not me, I guess.
Right.
Maybe I'm just so passive in that regard.
Right.
But yeah, no, that's never happened to me personally. I mean, to the part where I was like livid. I'm like, no, I'm getting this done. I've partnered with people on certain things, or I've considered partnering, but.
When you look at we haven't really spoken much to your experience at Mass Appeal, and I'm curious the difference of the kind of the pros and cons of working at like a smaller, more boutique label like that versus like a bigger company like Atlantic. Would you enjoy? Would you dislike? Yeah.
Sure. Well, when I was at Mass Appeal, I had ownership in the company at the time. I was the GM. So it was really on my shoulders to keep the lights on, So what came behind managing the day-to-day of, the people that work for me. That's a very different role than what is A&R.
Right.
It's like
Totally.
the absolute opposite. So, I came in there very green in the space of like really knowing what came behind getting a record to marketplace. I had a friend of mine I could lean on for those kind of questions, a colleague and a gentleman named Amit that was very good in that space. He's probably one of the smartest minds in independent music to me personally, particularly independent hip hop. I think he's really good at what he does. But I was very fortunate to be able to lean on him in that regard, even though he worked there sort of, but he worked at a bunch of different other labels, but it's night and day, man. And then when I realized I think I thrive better in the creative space, what an A&R role on a day-to-day basis was, I realized I was like, hey, this isn't for me.
Yeah.
It was just, I could run an A&R department, sure. Mm-hmm. But, getting an album out and like an artist really looking at you to deliver what that looks like, it's tough. With like a team of about 6 people at the most.
Yeah.
That's a cool experience though. I mean, to be able to see both sides.
From manufacturing, what it comes to actually designing a layout, that's cool. That's cool. Making sure, everything that comes with just from manufacturing to shipping, I don't know, just even that part I had no idea about. I had zero, references. There's not a book I could read about it. I just kind of trudged my way through it and kind of figured it out as I went, asking a million questions.
Yeah.
It was a great experience, and I took away a lot from what I learned doing that to when I came back to Atlantic and had to roll out projects, because I really understood what came behind taking a record to marketplace. Because before A&R wise, I would just be like, here's the album, or here's a project, cool, all right, fingers crossed. And then I know what is actually getting done. And if is that legitimate? Why are we doing that? And I would ask too many questions, and I don't know if they hate me. But yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of that role just of being an A&R, I think everyone, at least I did, at some point in the industry realized what they wanted to do. So I was interning at 4 different places. Sure. They all didn't seem like they went far enough. I was like, I don't want to just be on a label. I want to be talking to the artist, or I don't want to just be doing the publicity at that point, because I want to dig a little deeper into the album rollout. At what point were you like, this is what I want to do? I want to be an A&R.
I didn't even know what it was. I used to work in the film industry years ago, in college, out of college. I did something called Grip and Electric. I live in North Carolina, so I did lighting on TVs and movies and commercials and stuff. And on the side, I would shoot music videos for rappers, whatever, North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia. I'd pop down there, shoot videos. And all the while, obviously, I'm obsessed with music, right? Just in general. That's why I wanted, to shoot rap music videos or just whatever. And I started, I was in and out of bands, from high school, growing up. I was in marching band. I was a big marching band nerd. I played percussion and I did drum corps. Then I got into really into collecting records and music and just being tapped into what that looked like. Mm-hmm. I DJ'd. At a radio show. So, it always came back to music for me. So here I am, I'm working in film, and I made a lot of friends with these managers for these artists, and I made friends with the artists. And I just started having lots of music conversations with them. And I seemed to be ahead of the curve constantly on yo, you should listen to this, or you should listen to this. And they were like, yo, Brian, you're always tapped in. Why? How do you know? And I didn't have an explanation why I knew all this stuff. I was like, yeah, I don't know. That's what I do. I just like to know what's happening, what's new, and they're like, yo, you should be an A&R. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. I was like, what is that? And And then it kind of was explained to me, and I Googled it, and I was like, oh, that's tight. You can that's a job. And and then I was like trying to figure out what my life was going to do next, because I wanted to get out of the film industry, because a combination of things, I'm always out of town. I was in a relationship with somebody, and I'd be out of town for like 3 months at a time. I'd be in the middle of nowhere in Georgia or middle of nowhere in Alabama. And then I just, I looked at guys that were working for, and their quality of life wasn't that much better than mine. Mm-hmm. I was like, man, I got to get out now. So I just really Googled like how to be an A&R, or what is an A&R, what comes behind it. And I was like, oh, this is cool. Here I am in North Carolina. I don't know anybody in the music industry, not even in North Carolina. And I just started like researching and reaching out and asking a lot of questions, and fast forward a couple years, and I ended up getting, working my way in. Kind of random.
I might be misremembering this, but did you say you used to make mixtapes for people?
Yeah.
And then did Timbo end up getting some? Or is that me imagining that?
No.
It was a while ago you told me that story.
Yeah. No, gosh, you remember that. I don't know if I've told that to many people. Where I'm from in Virginia, a place called Newport News. And a buddy of mine that I knew through a mutual friend, he played piano. And I knew he was a producer. And I knew he made music with some people, but his name's Hannon Lane. And come to find out, he was making music. He was like Timberland's one of his main piano guys. So he was playing everything for Timberland. He'd go over to Virginia Beach, lock in for like a week or two. He did like Rehab for Rihanna. He did like, so all that piano work, that's actually him. He made that in his mom's basement.
Wow.
On Rehab for Rihanna. He made a bunch of like random, like Fall Out Boy records to like a bunch of random like Flow Rider records, like Elevator. Anyway, I was friends with him, and he knew I was always on top of music. So he'd get in my car, and I would just play CDs and stuff like that. He's like, yo, man, you should make me some CDs, man. He's like, I need to listen to that new shit. I'm just in church all the time, or going to this studio. I'm like, all right. So I started making him mix CDs. He's like, yo, can you write down who the artists are on this? I was like, damn. He's like, I'll give you some money to do. I'm like, oh, all right, cool. So I started randomly just making him mix CDs, and I'd give it to him. I did it for like 2 months, 3 months, something like that. And I don't remember exactly how I ended up. He's like, yo, you should come by the studio if you're ever in Virginia Beach or something like that. So I ended up going over studio. First time I've ever been in the studio. I was like, yo, this is dope. It was like, one of the coolest looking things that I've ever seen. And long story short, he was kind of giving those mix CDs to Timberland. He would like play him. And then Tim, like, I guess I don't know how Tim he started finding out new artists and, via those mix CDs back in the day. And Timberland comes in the room. Hannon introduced him to me. He's like, yo, you good, blah, blah, blah. and he had me, he's like, this guy named Larry, I guess he was like right-hand man, Larry Live. He's like, yo, Larry, get his number. So Larry would hit me all the time, and I'd go meet Larry and give him mixtapes and give me money for it.
Do you think that was validating to you as a potential A&R?
I didn't know what it was. You know what I mean? It was just like, this is cool. You know what I mean? It was
awesome.
I didn't know how to explain it. I didn't know what it was, but it was just kind of like a peg along the way. I was like, and Hannah was like, yo, you should really do this music shit, Brian. I was like, all right. And that's what like around the same time the guys were telling me what an A&R was. This is like I don't remember if it was before or after it, but yeah.
Did you guys end up ever reconnecting? Did you ever meet Timberland and then be like, yo, I was that dude that was giving you CDs back in Virginia Beach?
No, I met him again in passing through something. But yeah, no, I wasn't really tapped in with him like that after that. It's kind of odd, but.
Where? All right, you want to get to these hot takes?
Yeah. So the hot takes are essentially a segment that we do at the end where it's like not necessarily stuff that we believe, but it's stuff we've just been hearing in the industry and just want to get your perspective. So for starters.
So rumor mill stuff?
Yeah, rumor mill stuff. Like one of them, labels aren't as invested in artist development as much as they used to be.
What do you think artist development is?
I think the notion of rather than just like really trying to sign artists and churn out as many records as possible, really like working with them to help them grow. You want to dive deeper?
Yeah. So,
this is a very broad term, so I just want to be clear.
Right. I think for me, the defining thing is how early you find the artists. So, I work with artists where we heard one track. It didn't even have a ton of streams. It was literally just, it sounded so good. We were like, all right, let's set something up. I think there's a rumor in the industry right now that labels don't do that anymore, that you have to bring some sort of...
I mean, for Atlantic, that's the farthest thing from the truth. If it's good, I'm going to go kick the tires on it. I want to see what it is. Why is it good? Who are you? Are you a real songwriter? Did you just get lucky that day? Were you writing 10 years before then, and that's the one song that kind of cut through?
Right.
Like, are you prolific enough, of a songwriter where I'm putting you in the room and next one's good, next one's good, next one's good. All right, great. You're becoming a real songwriter. There's thousands of artists that get signed to these labels all the time. Mm-hmm. Just people aren't responding to the music.
Right.
That's it. Like, they're doing all the things that come behind getting an artist to marketplace, but the music isn't doing the heavy lifting, right? People aren't getting into the story. They're just not there. There's a lot of artists that fall under that umbrella. There's at every label. So, I think people have a tough time with like certain artists they think are just trash being so good. That speaks to kind of us as a culture.
Right.
Right. Us, like when Big Bang Theory's the most popular TV show.
Yeah.
When like Jimmy Fallon hosts late night TV, like Donald Trump is president, like
just popularity in general just represents our tastes.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of amazing artists that I think should be a lot more popular than they are at the moment. They're my shit. That's what I listen to. I'm going to go to their show. But people just don't know about them. It's all good.
Do you think you have a line in your head of, and obviously sometimes it's sort of like a Venn diagram of, this is the music I fuck with, this is what I think everybody else will fuck with? Or is it more kind of like, all in the middle here?
Yeah, I mean, there's things I understand. It's like a business move where it's like, okay, great. There's a purpose for here. This one right here. It's not my world. It's not going to keep me up till 4 a.m. working on it, but I understand it and what it is. Now, I might sign it or be a part of it, but I'm going to bring someone along in the process, like another A&R or somebody who's like, like really is into it. Like, yo, this your shit? All right, cool. We'll do this together.
Right.
You know what I mean? And then there's things that like more passion projects, like they might not be the biggest global thing in the world, and that's okay, but you might get a deal done that kind of speaks to what they are and where they are. And you just make sure the expectations in the building and the company are what that is. And that's okay. It's like, this isn't going to be a behemoth. This isn't going to be Bruno Mars or Ed Sheeran. This probably isn't going to even be like, some other, much just a touch bigger, but this is their world and they're really good in their world, or, they do this. And, you make those cultural signings. So other artists, see like, oh, they're doing something different. That's cool. You guys fuck with that guy? Oh, that's cool. And, that speaks volumes sometimes when you're in the building, when, you're trying to, be in business with people that may be the better version of this guy. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, they like, so young artists respond to that. They pay attention to that shit constantly. Particularly it's a small world. They probably know that artist and they'll reach out to them like, yo, Atlantic's trying to holler at me. What do you think? Like, yo, Brian over there is my guy. He'll hold you down. Like, all right,
Tight. Which kind of leads to the next hot take. Older A&Rs are less in tune with the culture than the young guys joining the game.
I mean, there's some cornball old A&Rs, man. They have great lawyers, right?
Yeah.
And they've positioned themselves to like hold them down in a position. Like there's A&Rs at companies I've never heard of, and they're senior VPs. I've never seen them once anywhere. I've never seen them in a studio anywhere.
Yeah.
I've never seen one other artist even that's remotely on the rise mention that they've talked to them. And that's okay, cool. I don't know what they're doing, and I'm not concerned about it. And I'm glad they're old and they're in the space that they're taking up. That's cool. I have no problem with that. But then there's old A&Rs that like they live in the world they're in. They're really good at the world they're in. You know, and like someone's working on this more established act. Someone's holding down. You're not going to get a 22-year-old artist like working with, you know, one of your legacy rappers. It's just not happening.
Right.
You know, you need a grown up in the room, like a real seasoned grown up who has those old relationships. Because there's older A&Rs have really long-standing relationships, and they're really good at building and maintaining those relationships.
Right.
Not everybody's, you know, the new cool stuff. You know, there's more established things over here that have been around for centuries, you know, for decades or whatever, and they've been there for a while. They all serve a purpose. Everyone serves a purpose. There's no reason they'd probably be in the building, but a lot of times people stay in this business just off force of personality. You know what I mean? They're just a personality. They're loud, the loud person in the room. They're not necessarily right. They're just a loud person.
Right. They just know how to get their way.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So I guess one last question to close everything out, but I think for different emerging artists or managers or just what advice would you give for those emerging artists looking to begin working with a major label?
Don't look for me. Don't pitch me anything. Just go do you. Just don't be precious with your music. Just get it out there and pay attention to what's going on. Like take cues from people currently, or look at people you really fuck with and why they're winning. What is it? Pay attention. Just whether you want to admit you're a student of what's going on, just be a student of it. If you're not going to, artist-wise, just make sure your manager is tapped into that. That's really it. Just do you and make the best version of yourself, and people will respond to it.
Amazing. Well, on that note, Brian, thank you so much, man. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, man. Thank you, Brian. Appreciate it.
Man, that was awesome. What'd you think, Jordan?
I thought that was great, man.
Yeah.
I mean, it was good seeing him after however many years since I've interned. You know, it was like a full
Jordan all grown up now.
Yeah, I know, man. Hopefully he thinks so. I mean, he's still such a smart guy. It's crazy when you're around people like that kind of helps you grow as a music industry professional. As soon as you're in the room with them again, you're a student again, you know?
For sure. No, I definitely really, really loved his advice that he had for emerging artists, which is to not look for A&Rs, to just focus on making incredible music, getting people to buy tickets to shows. Really kind of reiterated multiple times the importance of being able to get people to come out for your shows. So if you're a manager working with an emerging artist or an emerging artist yourself, like really focus on building out that community. I think it's, that's what's really going to get the snowball to start rolling and building and really turn into potentially a career with lots of longevity. So I think Brian has become a master at really helping the stars align and really getting all of the right pieces of the puzzle together on the production side and making little tweaks here, getting people to refine hooks, refine pre-choruses. I mean, he even spoke just to the tact of there being too many syllables in the pre-chorus. I mean, just the level of depth and focus in which he's able to really deconstruct these sort of things is awesome. So,
right. And I thought, you know, one of the bigger takeaways too that we didn't get to talk about as much, but that people should hear is that it doesn't always need to be you. You can write songs for other people too. I think people don't think about that as much, as if that's not as important of a career. These songs, they have two sides to them. They have the recording and they have the composition, and that composition is just important. So it doesn't always need to be you that's writing or that's recording the record.
Yeah, no, fantastic point. So on that note, thank you guys so much for listening. As always, super grateful for your support. If you have any feedback or if there's something you liked, please don't hesitate to leave a review. It not only helps us make sure we're focusing on the things that matter to you, but it also helps ensure that this podcast is getting in front of other people that are going to want to listen to it. So on that note, thank you. We out.